Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm 38, and I live in Overland Park, Kansas. I've been married to Bryce for almost 7 years. When we first got together, things were great. He was calm, dependable, and made me feel safe. That's all I ever really wanted, stability and someone to build a life with. Kids were always part of the plan. We started trying about 3 years in, but nothing happened. At first, we brushed it off. Timing, stress, maybe we just weren't trying hard enough. I started using tracking apps. Changed my diet. Took vitamins. We did everything right. Still nothing. Eventually, I asked Bryce if he'd be open to getting tested. He dragged his feet, but he did it. He said the results were fine. I trusted him. Then I got tested. The doctor said everything looked okay on my end. So we tried for another year. Every month that passed felt heavier. I felt like something was broken, and even though the tests said otherwise, I blamed myself. When I brought up IVF, he was quiet at first. Then he nodded and said, "If that's what you want." That should have been a red flag. It wasn't our decision, it was mine, and he was just going along with it. I didn't realize how alone I was until it was too late. Bryce's mom, Doreen, is one of those women who always smiles while insulting you. At our wedding, she told me I looked brave for wearing a fitted dress. She once asked if I'd considered light jogging when I mentioned my job was mostly sitting at a desk. When she found out we were doing IVF, she said, "That's a lot of money to force something that maybe isn't meant to happen." She never said it directly, but she always hinted that I was the problem. That my weight, my stress levels, my unhealthy choices were the reason there was no baby. Bryce never corrected her. He said things like, "That's just how she is," or "She means well." She started coming over more when I began the injections. She claimed she wanted to help, but she didn't lift a finger. She just sat in the kitchen, criticizing what I ate and how tired I looked. "You sure you should be eating that toast?" she said one morning. "It's whole grain," I replied. "Still carbs," she muttered, sipping her tea. That same day, after watching me give myself a hormone injection, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Maybe God is trying to stop a mistake." I turned to her, stunned. "Excuse me?" She smiled. "I just mean, if something isn't happening naturally, maybe it's for a reason." I wanted to scream. I looked at Bryce, hoping he'd defend me. He didn't. He just sighed and said, "Mom, please." That was it. I started sleeping in the guest room that night. The IVF cycle started okay. The shots were rough, but I handled it. I kept a notebook with all my doses, symptoms, questions for the doctor. I wanted this to work. I needed this to work. But 2 weeks in, I noticed something strange. My symptoms stopped. No bloating, no mood swings, no headaches. I felt normal. Too normal. At first, I thought maybe my body was just adjusting. But then I opened a new vial and noticed the liquid was clear, too clear. I checked the label and felt my heart drop. Saline solution. Not my prescribed hormone meds. I ran to the trash and pulled out all the empty vials I'd used over the past few days. Same thing. Saline. Not one of them was real. I started shaking. My mind raced. Was it a pharmacy error? Had I messed up? No. I labeled everything myself. I knew what I was doing. Someone switched them. I didn't wait. I went into the living room and dumped the empty vials onto the coffee table in front of Bryce. He was watching a rerun of some grilling show. Didn't even look up right away. "Bryce. Did you touch my medication?" He glanced at the table, then at me. "What are you talking about?" "These aren't my meds. They're saline. Someone replaced them." He blinked slowly. Then, with a straight face, he said, "Mom thought your body needed a reset." I stared at him. Are you serious? She said the hormones were messing with you. She thought it might help to give your system a break. And you let her do that? You knew? She didn't mean anything bad by it, he said, like that made it better. She just thought. I cut him off. She's not a doctor. He shrugged. You were getting really emotional. It seemed like too much. I couldn't even scream. I just stood there, shaking, staring at the man I thought I married. I packed a bag and left that night. Drove straight to my sister's. The next morning, my doctor saw me first thing. I told her what I'd found. She looked horrified but calm, like this wasn't the first time she'd heard something insane. She drew blood, ran hormone panels, and pulled up my chart. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. We got a follow-up on Bryce's previous analysis. You asked for a full report, remember? I nodded. Yeah, months ago. Well, I'm sorry, but the latest report shows 0 viable sperm. In fact, based on his results, it's unlikely he ever had functioning sperm in the first place. I sat in silence. He told me everything was fine, I said quietly. She looked confused. No, the report was sent directly to him. We flagged it and asked him to follow up. He never did. I called him from the parking lot. He answered on the second ring. Your sperm count is 0, I said. The doctor told me. You knew. You knew, Bryce. He was quiet. You let me think this was my fault, I said, my voice rising. You let your mother tear me apart. You watched me pump myself full of hormones and cry myself to sleep, and you said nothing. He exhaled. I didn't want to be the reason. I thought maybe if we waited, something would change. So you just let me go through it alone? You let her make me feel like garbage while you sat there and said nothing? I didn't know what to say, he muttered. I thought maybe if we gave up on IVF, we could try adoption or something. You're a coward, I said. And she's evil. He hung up. After Bryce hung up, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. My fingers were numb. Not from the cold, but from the shock. I wasn't just grieving the IVF. I was grieving my marriage. I didn't go back home. I stayed at my sister Marla's. She lives about 20 minutes away, in a quiet cul-de-sac with 2 screaming toddlers and a golden retriever that sheds like crazy. It wasn't peaceful, but it was safe. She didn't ask questions right away. She just made me tea and let me sit in silence. 2 days later, Bryce showed up at her door. I opened the door because Marla wasn't home. I shouldn't have. Bryce stood there in a gray hoodie and jeans, holding a Tupperware container. I brought your favorite, he said. Chicken noodle. I didn't move. Why are you here? I want to talk, he said. Just talk. I let him in, but stayed standing. He sat on the couch and looked around like he'd never been in a house with toys on the floor and baby socks on the coffee table. You okay? He asked. I laughed. Are you? I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we should go to counseling. Like, real marriage counseling. I stared at him. You let your mother sabotage my medication. You lied about your fertility. You stood by while she told me I wasn't meant to be a mom. Counseling isn't going to fix that. She didn't mean harm, he said again, like it was a script he couldn't stop reading from. She honestly thought she was helping. I don't care what she thought. She messed with my body. That's abuse. He didn't like that word. He flinched. You're being dramatic. And that was it. That sentence flipped a switch in me. Get out. Melissa, I said get out. He left, but he didn't stay gone for long. The next twist came in the mail. A week later, I got an insurance summary, one of those explanation of benefits letters. I almost threw it away, thinking it was just leftover billing junk. But something caught my eye. There was a lab test listed under Bryce's name. A genetic screening. Ordered 6 weeks ago. I called the clinic. Asked about the test. The nurse checked. Yes, he came in for a separate appointment, she said. It wasn't related to your IVF cycle, though. It was listed under future fertility counseling. I hung up and stared at the wall. Why was he doing genetic screening, without me? Marla helped me dig. She's one of those people who could find your social security number using only your first name and a school photo. She started going through his public Venmo transactions. Most were normal. One stood out. A payment to someone named Leah M. The note said, "Thanks again for doing this." Leah M. wasn't a friend of ours. I searched her name on Facebook. Her profile was private, but her profile picture was a sonogram. Pregnant. Then I remembered something Doreen had said once when she thought I wasn't listening: there are always other ways to make a family. I created a burner Facebook account and sent Leah a message. I didn't expect her to respond. But she did. I told her I was Bryce's wife. That we'd been doing IVF. That I'd found some confusing information. She replied 3 hours later. I didn't know he was still married. He told me you two were separated and trying to co-parent through IVF because you couldn't let go. He said you were obsessed. I'm sorry. I nearly dropped my phone. She went on to say they'd been seeing each other for about 8 months. He told her I was unstable. Controlling. That I refused to accept it was over. He'd been setting up a whole second life. And now she was pregnant. I called Bryce. No hello. Just. You got another woman pregnant while we were doing IVF? Silence. I talked to her, I added. He groaned. Melissa, I can explain. No. You can't. You replaced my dream with your backup plan. He said nothing. Then, finally, I didn't think it would happen like this. You mean, you didn't think you'd get caught? Click. I filed for divorce the next day. But the story wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't just file for divorce, I made sure to freeze everything. Every shared account. Every credit card. I changed passwords, pulled financial records, and hired a lawyer the same week. My lawyer, Julia, didn't waste time. This isn't just a divorce, she said after reading the notes I brought in. This is a case of fraud, medical interference, and emotional abuse. She was right. And I wasn't done uncovering the mess. A week after I filed, I stopped by our house to grab the rest of my things. Bryce wasn't there. But Doreen was. She was in the kitchen, cleaning out the fridge like it was her house. I told her to leave. She refused. This is my son's home, she said. I'm helping him get ready. For what? She smiled without smiling. For the baby. For his real family. Those words made me freeze. What did you just say? He deserves a second chance. Someone young. Someone who's not damaged. I took a step closer. You think sabotaging my IVF gave him that? She didn't flinch. You wouldn't have been a good mother. You're too selfish. Too emotional. You let your feelings control you. I stared at her, rage boiling over. You broke the law, Doreen. She laughed. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I can. The fridge camera caught everything. She stopped laughing. It wasn't a lie. 2 months ago, I'd bought a small camera that stuck to the inside of the fridge, meant for monitoring groceries while away. I forgot to take it down. I never needed it until now. I checked the cloud footage that night. There she was. One Tuesday morning, while I was in the shower, Doreen opened the fridge, picked up my hormone vials, looked at them, and swapped them with her own box. Saline. She smiled while doing it. She smiled. I sent the footage to Julia and to the clinic. Good, Julia said. This is tampering with medical treatment. We'll press charges. And it's going in the divorce file. 2 days later, there was a knock on Marla's door. It was Leah. She looked exhausted. Pale. Confused. Can we talk? She asked. We sat outside. Her eyes didn't leave the ground. She was about 5 months along. She told me everything. Bryce had told her I was unstable. Controlling. That I'd forced him into IVF. That I threatened to hurt myself if he left. He'd even showed her fake text messages, screenshots he made using some app. I only agreed to the pregnancy because he said he wasn't sure he could have kids, she said. He made it sound like you were the problem. I feel stupid now. I didn't say anything. I just let her speak. I want to know what I'm bringing a baby into, she added. That's why I came. I gave her the truth. Every detail. She left in silence. Another twist came a week later. My lawyer forwarded me an email. Apparently, Julia had included Bryce's actions, including the medical sabotage, in the legal filing for temporary restraining orders. His employer, a large medical tech company in Kansas City, got wind of it. They called it behavioral misconduct and terminated his contract. That same night, Bryce texted me, "You're ruining my life. You got what you wanted, now let me go." I didn't answer. Then came the kicker. Leah contacted me again. This time, with a question that knocked the wind out of me. Do you think he faked the fertility results? I blinked. What? She bit her lip. He told me the baby might not be his after all. That he wants a paternity test. My mouth went dry. He said something about using backup samples from a clinic. That sometimes they do that. That I shouldn't assume things yet. That was it. That was the missing piece. Bryce knew he was infertile. But he was so obsessed with saving face that he might have paid someone to fake the donation and keep up the lie. Maybe even used a donor without telling Leah. Everything about this man was a lie. My lawyer sent an urgent letter to the fertility clinic. The director called me personally 2 days later. We're doing a full audit of your husband's file. There are some discrepancies. What kind? I asked. He cleared his throat. There's a signature on a consent form we can't verify. It looks forged. For what? For the use of third-party sperm. I dropped the phone. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a criminal cover-up. And the web was still unraveling. The clinic completed their audit within a week. Turns out, Bryce had forged a consent form that authorized the use of third-party sperm. He didn't want me to know he was infertile, so he went behind my back and tried to use donor material without telling either me or Leah. But that's not all. There was also a note from the lab technician. Bryce had told them I had approved the donor. He used a fake email address in my name and forged my digital signature. It was so sloppy it only took the clinic 2 days to confirm it. They fired the technician who ignored protocol. The clinic put out a formal statement of policy failure, and their legal department got involved. They wanted to settle quietly. But I wasn't about to let that happen. Julia, my lawyer, filed charges against Doreen for tampering with prescription medication and medical interference. Since the footage from the fridge camera clearly showed her handling and replacing the vials, the police didn't even hesitate. She was arrested, fingerprinted, and spent the night in jail before getting out on bail. She called me 3 times after that. I didn't answer. She also lost her position on the HOA board in her neighborhood after word got out. The newsletter didn't mention her name, but everyone knew. Her friends started avoiding her. The same women who used to gather at her house every Tuesday for Bible study now met across the street. She was officially exiled from the one place she thought she ruled. Bryce was hit with a civil lawsuit for medical fraud and emotional abuse. He tried to fight it at first, but once Leah turned on him too, he folded. Leah called me crying one night. She had done her own paternity test. The results came back. Bryce wasn't the father. He had somehow used donor material for her, too. Most likely the same donor he planned to use on me. She was horrified. Said she felt violated. She filed her own lawsuit. Her family, who had been supportive of her relationship with Bryce, cut ties with him completely. Her brother even sent me flowers, saying, "I'm sorry my sister ever met that man." Leah eventually moved back to Ohio to be near her parents. She decided to raise the baby alone, but told me she was planning to name her daughter Hope. Because that's what she was clinging to after everything. I saw Bryce one last time in court. He looked like a ghost. Pale. Thinner. No job. No support. He tried to represent himself at first, but the judge shut it down fast. He was forced to accept a court-appointed attorney because no firm wanted his mess. Julia brought everything. The camera footage. The forged forms. The emails. The texts. The timeline. Leah testified too, voice shaking, baby bump showing. The courtroom was silent the whole time. When it was my turn, I looked right at Bryce. "I trusted you with my body, my future, and my dream of being a mother," I said. "You let your mother poison my treatment. You lied to me, over and over. You made me feel like I was the problem, when it was you the entire time. And then you tried to erase me from your story by creating a new one behind my back. You don't deserve forgiveness." Bryce didn't look at me. He just stared at the floor. The judge ordered him to pay damages, emotional and financial, totaling $240,000. He had to sell his house. His car was repossessed. His accounts were frozen. His name was flagged in every fertility clinic registry in the state. But the worst punishment? The world saw who he really was. And no one stood beside him anymore. Doreen pled guilty to avoid jail time but was sentenced to house arrest and probation. She also had to complete 500 hours of community service. Picking up trash around the very town she used to brag about ruling socially. The day I saw her in a neon vest along the highway, head down, sunburned, I smiled and drove right past. Bryce disappeared. Rumor is, he moved out of state to live in his cousin's basement in Idaho. His social media vanished. No job. No partner. No baby. Leah and I kept in touch, strangely enough. Trauma does that. We weren't friends exactly, but we had a bond. She sent me a photo when her daughter was born. Hope. 10 fingers. 10 toes. A little fighter. I started over. I took a break from fertility. From men. From needing to be a mother on a deadline. I focused on healing. Therapy. Work. Travel. 2 years later, I went back to my doctor. A new clinic. A new team. I used a donor. One I picked myself. And this time I did it alone. That's how my son, Caleb, came into the world. Healthy. Strong. Mine. Every day I hold him, I think about what I went through. The betrayal. The lies. The poison. But I don't let it own me anymore. I survived. And I got everything they tried to take away. Only now, I didn't need permission. Or a man. Or a monster pretending to be a partner. Just strength. And revenge served cold.